Hello and welcome to Top Secret TV. My name's David Becker. Tonight our guest in the studio is Kerry Press, the manager and owner of Feng Shui Environmental Design. Welcome, Kerry.
Thank you.
How are you?
Good.
That's good. Now, if you could just tell us a little bit about Feng Shui, what actually is it?
Well, Feng Shui is a healing art. It's one of the limbs of traditional Chinese medicine, and Feng Shui works with Qi or life force energy, and it seeks to bring about balance and harmony in a living environment, the same way as acupuncture or Chinese herbs might bring about balance within the body. So Feng Shui recognises that the person and the environment are connected. So the state of our living environment reflects our quality of life or our state of mind.
Right. Does Feng Shui itself actually mean anything?
Yes, Feng Shui means wind and water, which I think are a wonderful description of what Feng Shui is all about. Feng Shui, wind and water, it's about containment and flow. It's about the flow of Qi and the containment of Qi, life force energy.
Right, and it's quite an ancient science, I understand, going back many thousands of years in China. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of Feng Shui?
Yes, Feng Shui is said to have originated 4,000 or 5,000 years ago in China, and it's certainly practiced throughout all Asian countries. It's still quite popular today, but in India they would claim that in fact Feng Shui originated from their sacred architecture, the Vastu Shastra, so it goes back even further than that.
Really? So the Indians actually have a system of Feng Shui. Do they call it, what do they call it?
They call it the Vastu Shastra.
Right.
Yeah.
And is it essentially the same system?
It has similar roots, it has similar foundations.
Can you trace how it's spread across different countries and cultures from historical documents?
Yes, you can. And in fact, it's also been shown that a form of Feng Shui, that is the science of people relating to their environments or living in a way that's harmonious with the changing seasons and with changing environments to their advantage, that art can be seen in prehistoric sites all around the world.
So you could possibly argue a case that many peoples from many different cultures had something analogous to Feng Shui.
Absolutely. And it just so happens that it's survived, well, it survived in China. It went underground during the Cultural Revolution, and Feng Shui practitioners or masters fled to places like Korea and Hong Kong and Japan.
Really?
And that's now where it's emerging back into China. So in fact, China is not necessarily the place where the best Feng Shui is, and it's not known to a lot of younger Chinese.
As Feng Shui is an art that was developed over many thousands of years, has much been added to it in the 20th century as it spreaded to Western countries?
We're rapidly adding our Western interpretation to Feng Shui here in Western countries, and some of that's perhaps applicable because we live in quite a different lifestyle now.
Okay, yeah.
So now we're being exposed to a lot of modern problems like electromagnetic radiation and sick buildings, toxic materials, pollution, and instead of talking about a landscape in terms of rivers and mountains and so on, we have to look at it in terms of freeways and streets and buildings.
Yeah.
So
the principles are essentially the same, but they're on a different scale.
Yes.
In a sense. Okay. Now, moving on to some of the specifics, in your CV, you talk about two different schools of Feng Shui that you've looked at. Can you basically tell us a little bit about the schools, the compass and the other school?
Yes, there are different approaches to Feng Shui, some of which make a lot of sense, very practical. The form school, for example, which embraces the physical aspects of our environment, deals with aspects of form and shape and structure. And the other school broadly embraces the concept of changing energy in space and time, and that's the compass school, which involves the drawing up a horoscope for a building and looking at that in relation to the horoscope of a person and how someone's life can change over changing time periods and in different places, different environments.
Now, with the compass school, you actually it's literally the compass school. I don't know whether we can see this here. It's actually physically a real compass.
Yes, quite a beautiful compass too. That's used to take sightings of buildings and to draw up a complex horoscope for a building. Takes many years of training to become skilled in that, and also a lot of experience to start to see how energy influences a building.
Right.
I think that's an important factor, that there are aspects of Feng Shui that people can adopt immediately with very little knowledge, but rather with a cultivating of their own ability and to perceive their environment and their ability to develop their intuition and take note of that. That we could all benefit from. There are aspects of Feng Shui that really ought to be treated with respect and some awareness and some knowledge, because it has a lot of power.
Right. Can you possibly touch on some of the misconceptions that might be out there about Feng Shui? Because I noticed there, like, it's definitely increasing in popularity. You can see it in many of the magazines. There's little sections on Feng Shui and stuff like that. I would imagine that a little knowledge can be a dangerous thing. Are there some assumptions or ideas that are out there in the public arena that aren't necessarily accurate?
Yes, there are, very much. There's people are reading all kinds of things about Feng Shui, and quite often it's contradictory or it's confusing, or sometimes it's taken out of context, because the real art of Feng Shui takes a master many years, if not a lifetime, to become proficient at. And to take little pieces of that and speak of it in a magazine or a book or a short course, it can be taken out of context and misused. So, for example, the use of flutes or fans or bagua mirrors are often spoken about, or placement of goldfish, considered to be very lucky or very auspicious. There are aspects of Feng Shui that would make it very unlucky or quite dangerous to place goldfish in a particular place, in a room, in a restaurant, in a bedroom, for example.
Really, even though from a general principle it might be the right place to put it, but for that particular person's situation, it could do them more harm than good.
For example, with a bowl of goldfish, if someone's personal astrology reveals that they don't like the water element, then incorporating water into their environment could be disastrous, depending on their chart.
Now, with the complementary, say, astrology, is that an art form or modality that's actually part of Feng Shui, or is it something that you've melded into it?
It's a very important part of Feng Shui when we're talking about flying star Feng Shui, or the compass, using the compass. Flying star Feng Shui involves drawing up a horoscope for a building and looking at that in relation to the current time period. So it's very appropriate to similarly draw up someone's personal astrology, called the Four Pillars of Destiny. Deals with the same principles, but it's looking at the person's astrology and how that's influenced by the current time period. So you look at them side by side.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've got some actual slides of what is good and what is bad Feng Shui. If we can actually run through some of those. Now, I understand you've done some work with clients. What's going on here?
Yes. Well, this is just an example that shows the kinds of buildings that we're creating these days, and I really question the degree to which they support us and nourish us. This is a building that I think, if we look at it purely from a logical perspective, has very little life force coming into it. It has very small windows, very flat angular surfaces, very closed. It's got vibrance in the colour that's incorporated, but I would suggest it's not a building that's going to take care of people for the long term. Interesting artistic concept.
All right.
I just put this one in because, as I mentioned earlier, the state of our living environment can quite often reveal or bring about an experience in our lives. And this one, as you can see, has another house directly facing the entrance of this house, which in itself is quite threatening. This house also is downhill from it, so it's in a more vulnerable position. And it's also got its front door opposite the driveway where the cars come down. So it's like being at the receiving end of a freeway, in a sense. A very cutting effect straight through the front door. Also, it's a vulnerable front door. You've got an exposed light globe there, and there were other broken or neglected aspects at the entrance of this house. And the occupants were experiencing a lot of hardship.
And when those things were changed, did their lives change?
They have, yes. I mean, one of the things this person was experiencing was difficulty with her car, which was parked just in the driveway at the side there. Because it also happens that along with these these physical things that we can see that the horoscope revealed a very difficult influence at the front door. You wonder which brought which about, chicken and egg. When she moved her car, just remarkably, she called me back a couple of days later and said she had no more car problems.
Really?
So those little things can happen. This one, a terrible photo, but
Oh my God, it's a UFO.
this house is up for sale, and it's opposite a T-junction. And how many of us have seen houses or buildings for sale, commercial dwellings, premises that have come up for sale, where they've been at a busy intersection, and it's just too difficult an environment to live in.
In what respect? I remember growing up in a house in a T intersection. I'd be interested to...
You're very vulnerable to that what's called like a cutting chi effect of cars coming along the road and as it were straight towards the house. With a house like this, I'd recommend that they put up a strong fence as a bit of a buffer between them and the cars that are coming towards them. And at night time, of course, you're getting that strong effect of the lights coming through the windows.
Would you say that Feng Shui is very much a common sense thing?
There are aspects of it that make a lot of sense. I know a lot of people are quite sceptical about Feng Shui, and perhaps justifiably so, given there's a lot of superstition around it. But I find with a lot of my clients, they may be sceptical at the start, but when they start to get a sense of how it works, a lot of Feng Shui makes sense, very practical, and in fact it's in our interest to be aware of it.
Right, okay, well, going back to these slides, there are some design principles, just general design principles that are good and bad Feng Shui. We talked about some earlier beams.
Yes, there are general principles that are good for everyone, and then of course each of us has our own unique needs as well, so it's important to set up our environment to suit ourselves as well. But this house is dominated by the garage. It has as you can see, the car is actually right in front of the front door, and you have to sneak around the side of the car to get to the entrance. You've got another dark garage space on the other side, so the front of the house is really obstructed by the car. Not necessarily a bad thing. It may be a house that suits people that want to be a bit more reclusive, want to when they come home, they're tucked away from the world.
So it's sort of enclosing energy in a sense. Does the fact that there was heaps of trees around the property help?
Brings life force, yep.
Right. So that is a general principle. Living things enhance the energy of an environment?
Generally, yes, but even certain kinds of plants have better energy than others. And in fact, the Chinese would say that it's not good to have bamboo near your house because it harbours evil spirits.
Oh, okay, and it's the devil to get out too.
Yes. Now this is a common one. This is a bed where the people here are sleeping under overhead beams, and when the beams are going this way, that can actually bring about separation between a couple.
Ooh.
Or if they were going the other way across the bed, they can cause health problems. Beams, in fact, it's not just a superstition thing. Beams have been shown to have a cutting effect that can be measured.
Electromagnetically?
Yes, and that impacts our body's energy field.
Yeah. So to beam or not to beam?
Not to beam.
Not to beam, right.
Yes. Ah, the casino. Controversial, this one.
Indeed.
Yes. Well, the casino, we can look at that on a couple of levels. If we look at it from a compass school perspective, the horoscope of the casino site reveals that it can in fact be very prosperous.
For the owners or for Victoria?
For both, could be.
Okay.
But when we look at the building that has been, or buildings that have been constructed over the top, it doesn't support the horoscope. And in fact, this building on many levels can attract a lot of prosperity, but can lose a lot of prosperity as well. For starters, it's built along the banks of the Yarra River. It actually technically has its back to the Yarra River, and it's not considered good feng shui to have a river flowing at your back. You should have the river at your front. This building, being built on the banks of the river, is essentially built on water, and it's not good to have a building on water. It's unstable.
Yeah.
It has a car park in the foundations, which is further destabilising the foundations of the building.
Yeah. So you're just taking structurally now?
Yes, talking structurally, yep. It has a big hole going through the middle where the road goes through the very middle of the casino, which is basically affecting the structural integrity of the building.
So would you say that issues relating to structural integrity have some sort of flow-on effect in the Feng Shui?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
Because
well-made buildings are more likely to have better Feng Shui, poorly made buildings are more likely to have poor Feng Shui.
Yeah, but it's not even as general as that. With the casino, it's potentially, well, it's potentially unstable, but it also loses a lot of chi. There's very little to contain the chi, life force, money, clients, customers.
So
in
easy
the
come,
building.
easy go.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of entrances, hole in the middle, shaky foundations.
Yeah, you could possibly argue that's intrinsic in the idea of gambling. Easy come, easy go.
Yep, well, it's a pattern. Now, this famous landmark in Melbourne is the Melbourne Exhibition Centre. This is a shot of the roof as it slices like a blade across the Westgate Bridge.
Yeah, very sharp.
Very threatening to any
Yeah.
cars going across the bridge. And we could talk for a while about the Melbourne Exhibition Centre. This is another picture. Feng Shui also has the potential to align people in their environment. By creating buildings that are aligned in the landscape, we can bring about alignment when we're in those buildings for ourselves. If you look at this slide, it shows these series of sloping poles, the sloping walls of the Melbourne Exhibition Centre, which when you're walking along there is very disorientating. You feel very unbalanced, which is not an experience that brings about balance and harmony or good Feng Shui. This next picture of the Exhibition Centre, have a look at all these angles and sharp. If ever I saw big beams,
It's very difficult to
good
get
example.
a horizon point or something
yes,
like that.
yep,
There's
which
no-
way is up and which way is
Yeah.
flat.
Yeah.
Very threatening and also very yang. Feng Shui works with the balance of yin and yang. Very yang, a lot of hard surfaces, a lot of sharp angles,
Which is
sloping.
masculine.
Yang tends to be the more masculine, hard, expansive. Need a little
Garden
bit of yin.
shedish kind of.
Yep. And here's, you know, to what degree is buildings like these supporting people's nourishment and well-being? This is a famous one on St Kilda Road, a bank building with, you can see how it's sited at an angle, which is potentially threatening to people coming into the building. Also, the windows themselves are reflecting. It's really quite piercing, and that's also has quite a negative effect on business. When you think about it, any business that's wanting to attract customers, clients, life force, energy, money into its premises needs to have its building designs to bring that about, not repel.
Is there an ideological argument here in the sense that architecture, perhaps when it comes to buildings in the city, skyscrapers, is towards functionalism and making money and getting the most out of their workers and efficiency, rather than having their personal spiritual growth as their centre principle?
That's a very good question. Yes, I think that's what's driving a lot of these buildings, but paradoxically, a lot of these buildings are becoming empty after 5 years, maybe. They're lucky if they last 5 years.
Yeah.
It doesn't make economic sense to create buildings in which productivity becomes low because people's energy is affected by them.
So could you argue a pretty effective case for an economic reason for adopting Feng Shui?
Absolutely.
You think that you could pretty much bottom line convince?
Absolutely. If
someone?
we only looked at it on economic grounds, I
Really?
think we could, yeah.
So that's very interesting. Would you say that that's perhaps partially responsible for the modern renaissance of Feng Shui in Western?
I think it is. I think people are looking for something like this, something that can bring their energy back.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who are experiencing bad luck, or it's like they come to Feng Shui because they've tried everything else.
Oh, really?
You know?
See, that's interesting. On the show, we've spoken to many different people from many different alternative-y kind of things, and a lot of them say that. They say that people come to us when they've tried everything else, you know, especially with complementary medicine. That's a very common criticism. And, you know, perhaps that makes the surprise for them so much more pleasant because they really don't come in with any expectations. Which leads me nicely on to my next question, which is, do you think that this Feng Shui is dependent on the person having a belief in it, or?
Good question. You don't have to believe in Feng Shui to get the results.
Right.
Absolutely not. Feng Shui, when it's practiced by a skilled practitioner, can bring about results regardless. What does help in getting good results for Feng Shui is the willingness of the person to change their lives where they need to change. Feng Shui is not about a quick fix. It's not about just hanging up a crystal or a wind chime and hoping your luck's going to change.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a deeper form of change, and Feng Shui can be a catalyst for that.
Really? So if you change the environment, it may change the person?
Yes.
And vice versa, I would presume, as well. If you change the person, it's going to change the environment.
Absolutely. So, and that's pretty exciting, really.
Yeah,
you know, if you're wanting to
environment kind of thing.
Yes, if you're wanting to create a sense of peace and perhaps spiritual order within,
yeah.
Introduce those qualities into your environment. Create order in your environment. Clean up clutter. Keep it simple in your surroundings. Minimise conflict in terms of colours and decor.
This is sort of getting off the track a bit, but is there any Japanese systems of Feng Shui? Because I was thinking about the minimalist philosophy and also the way their treatment of gardens. And they appear to, I don't know really enough about the subject, but they appear to have some sort of Feng Shui idea running through them.
Very much. They're very attuned to principles of order and balance, which is a form of Feng Shui. They have their own.
Right, okay, yeah. All right, with some of the practices, now we brought in some pretty amazing stuff here and some of the usual kind of things. Can you just run through some of these and maybe tell us what their functions are? And
yes, in terms of how Feng Shui works?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, we look at what you could call the mundane levels of Feng Shui cures or remedies or bringing about change, and that is to clean up clutter, to address any areas of neglect. We looked at the light globe earlier.
Yeah.
Get rid of anything unnecessary, because if you're harbouring lots of stored things that don't have a lot of relevance to your life now, it's going to hold you in the past.
Really? That's interesting.
So
clean
first,
up the office.
so if your surroundings are very conscious and you don't have a lot of clutter and neglect, then we can get to areas of interior design and work with colours and decor. We've got a lot of colours here today, just showing how Feng Shui works with the 5 elements. So colour becomes very important. Colours and qualities. Fire, earth, metal, water and wood.
I was wondering what the 5th was.
Yes.
Sorry,
the 5th element.
Yeah, it's
Isn't
metal.
that the theme of a new movie?
It is indeed. Yeah. Die Hard in the 24th century.
Yeah.
So
colours and decor, and that becomes very important in terms of the colours you incorporate into paint colours, fabrics and furnishings. Style also, you need to choose colours and style that are appropriate to the function of the room. You know, if you're designing a library, it's going to be very different to the colours and decor you incorporate into the stock exchange.
Right.
You know?
Would those principles, could you argue that they're at work when, say for example, we associate white with antisepticness, so people like to tile their bathrooms white and things like that?
Yes.
Is that colour, I mean, there's no real good reason or association between white and antisepticness, is it? I mean, I guess you can say dirt.
Well, it's pure, isn't it? It's a pure colour, it's clean, you know.
And like adolescents' obsession with wanting to paint their bedrooms black at some stage, you
Absolutely.
know. Are those things that are like manifestations in what we want of Feng Shui principles at work, sort of thing?
Absolutely. You'll find that we all tend to practice Feng Shui on some level. You know,
Really?
it's like when you make a decision about a house that you move into,
Yeah.
or when you go to a friend's place and it just feels great to be there versus another place that can feel
Or
uncomfortable.
you shift the couch around and go, that's the spot.
Exactly, that's Feng Shui. You know,
okay.
it's working with energy to our advantage. Except that we tend not to always live in our environments very consciously, and I think that's the tremendous potential of it now.
Well, that leads into a very interesting question. Would you say that animals have a better awareness of Feng Shui than most humans do?
Animals seem to have an innate relationship with their environment where they seem to know where good places are and
On
not
an
so
energetic
good.
level, like
Absolutely.
they're actually conscious of it?
And you'll see that with cats a lot.
Indeed,
you know,
yeah.
where they're drawn to certain spaces.
Yeah, and will only ever sit in those spaces and will never sit in the space. For example, if for people at home, I'm sure they know this, with the old cat box, and you have to wait until the cat chooses a spot and put the cat box there. If you try and put the cat where you want it, it just won't sit there.
Exactly.
You'll never use
And
the
in
cat box.
fact, you know, if we look at underground water and the dangers of having your bed over underground streams and so on, and it's been shown in studies that babies in cots will, on some level, pick pick that up if they're sleeping in a difficult area and move to the area of the cot that gets them away from it.
That's amazing, isn't
Yeah.
it? So is it our socialisation process? Why is it that human beings appear to be, compared to the rest of the animal kingdom, reasonably desensitised to these things, and we have to relearn them, if you like? What's happened to make us that desensitive?
Wow, that's a big philosophical question.
In 25 words or less.
I think essentially because we've created environments that disconnect us from our surroundings, that disconnect us from the natural cycles of change, of energetic change, disconnect us from the seasons. We live in very insulated little boxes and we drive around in little boxes. We're disconnected from our environments, and those environments also keep us disconnected from each other. And it's almost like we need to learn how to feel and experience things again on a deeper intuitive level. We have to cultivate that, and Feng Shui offers that to us.
Yeah, I mean the parallels between Feng Shui and some of the other Eastern philosophies and arts are extraordinary. I mean, obviously they're part of some coherent dialectic whole that you know, us Westerners are only sort of starting to get a bit of a handle on. People like yourself more advanced than others, of course.
Well, I think the whole wave of interest in Feng Shui now is because it sparks off on some level a deeper knowledge that we all have. It's like this deeper wisdom.
Yeah.
It sparks off things we've always known. It's like we're waking up.
And it's like, that's right, sort of thing.
It's giving some validation to that.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's maybe move on just quickly to what you're doing with Feng Shui environmental design. Can you tell us a little bit about the company?
Yes, well, we work generally with a range of different homes and businesses. People will come to us experiencing, say, financial difficulty or are setting up a business and want some advice on setting up the business to most powerfully achieve prosperity and achieve the business goals. Yeah. Or people come to us to get assistance with purchasing a good property or getting assistance to help to sell a property. I think one of the most rewarding ways that we work with clients is when we're able to work from the very beginning of a building's construction.
Or even purchasing land?
Purchasing land, siting the building, choosing the exact layout of the rooms and arrangement of rooms, design of the rooms, placement of furniture, colours, decor, landscaping, the best times to build, best times to move in, and so on.
Wow. Have you actually done that start to finish concept? Yeah, that would be very rewarding.
It is. It's wonderful. Yeah. And that way we get to work as a team with architects and interior designers and builders. It's very satisfying. So
obviously there's some sort of holistic idea underlying your company in that you work with other specialists.
Yes.
Okay, and lastly, if anyone wants to get in contact with Feng Shui environmental design, is there a number or a post office box address or something?
Yes, they can call us on 9399 2449, and that's Melbourne, and we will fly interstate if we need to.
Great. All right, well, thank you very much for your time, Kerry Press.
Thank you.
That's all we have time for this week. Stay tuned with us next week and we'll have another amazing guest in the studio. So until then, goodbye.